But we're going to continue on my next round as we talk about the money that you are entitled to, whether it be Medicaid money or Ryan White money that you have not sought, but that you're entitled to. Mr. Graham, do you have an opening statement? I'm going to give you an opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I won't require 15 minutes. I'll be glad to hear your round of additional questions. But let me just make a brief opening statement, if I may. It has been this is the 11th year that I have been not at Whitman Walker Clinic, and I have been here. And so I made a decision, and the clinic leadership made a decision in 1999 that it was best that I move on and let the clinic carry on in its own leadership patterns. The 15 years that I was the executive director of Whitman Walker Clinic, and the 3 years before that when I was president of Whitman Walker Clinic and virtually working full-time during that 3-year period, is 18 years of service, which constitutes the finest times of my life in terms of what I was able to contribute and in terms of what I experienced. And never again do I hope to duplicate the great moments that we had, particularly in the first years of the HIV epidemic, and all of what we did to contribute to the well-being of people who were very often very poor, very sick, sometimes abandoned by friends and family, and establishing models and structures largely in the dark, except for assistance that we got from other cities, because the mainstream in the United States in that period of time had a very ambivalent attitude to this whole epidemic, and that's the truth of the matter. Mm-hmm. So these were great times, extremely challenging times, extremely emotional times, and I just have to begin by saying, Mr. Chairman, what a great privilege it was to be part of all of that and to have a key role in the development. Whitman Walker Clinic predated the epidemic. It was a gay men's VD clinic. It had some lesbian services, had some substance abuse services, some men's counseling programs. But we were poised in the early 80s to really assume a key role in terms of expanding upon all of that. But anyway, all of that for me came to an end in January 1999, and I have remained, quite appropriately so, silent in terms of what has happened to the clinic in the 10 years or so that I have been apart from it. I must say at the outset that I had a very negative reaction to the recent round of terminations. Senior staff at the clinic who I had hired, and not just who I had hired, it wasn't no pride of hiring, it was people who I'd worked with intensely at these early years and who had contributed so much and who had worked so hard. And I couldn't be honest at this juncture if I didn't say that I was dismayed and disappointed, not only about their termination en masse, but also the way in which they were terminated. Upset me very deeply. Somebody who has 20-plus years of service to any organization, any business, who has given effectively 10 days' notice without severance pay, without ceremony, without appropriate recognition. And I know what these people contributed, and I know the adversity under which they worked. And I found the whole process to be so disrespectful to them and to their achievements and to the days of Whitman Walker that I'm associated with, that I just have to say something. And when you're silent for 10 years and you finally say something, I mean, the Whitman Walker Clinic has been up and down, but I do know this, that when I left on January the 1st, 1999, the place was solid. It was solid financially. The services were solid. The compassion was internationally respected. The quality of the programs was solid. Everything about it was solid. And I felt that I had done everything I could. I was anxious to be a member of this council. And the people at the clinic, quite frankly, were anxious to have their own leadership opportunities. And so everybody left in a sense of real euphoria. I left with a sense of real euphoria and also a sense of confidence that the place was not being, in any sense of the word, left short of what it needed to do the task. But so I kind of end this silence after 10 years. Councilmember Catania, I do want to thank you very sincerely. I am not a member of this committee, but I think Councilmember Catania and I thought that there's been so much time passing, and I'm so disturbed over these terminations and all of what it represents. And, and I'm going to conclude on this comment. Whenever you deal with personnel issues, we all know that you hesitate because in every personnel decision there are elements that cannot be the subject of public discussion. And I know that. When I left Whitman Walker Clinic, there were 272 full-time positions and a number of part-time positions and a number of consultants. So I have a fair amount of personnel experience. And I know that there are dynamics to a personnel decision that just can't be the subject of this type of public interchange. But the fact that all of these people were terminated in the same way, in the same fashion, with the same abruptness, bothers me. And so I said, well, let me come today, and when it comes my time to ask questions, I want to ask about this because it has sent a message to the D.C. government, and you need to hear this, Mr. Blanchard, that because these people have connections to this government. And there are people who have said to me in the D.C. government, high-ranking people, who have said, what does the current leadership of the clinic expect when they come to us for this, that, and the other thing after these people have been treated the way they've been treated? Because you have severed in a very unceremonious way relationships here that have been built over several decades. So you get the point. And I want to say just one other thing. Is I don't understand, and maybe it's not for me to understand, just why it isn't possible for the clinic to have maintained so many of its important programs on what it has. When the crisis occurred, in your testimony, Mr. Blanchard, indicates that several years ago, I know the chairman of this committee, Mr. Catania, came forward with some very, very substantial funding, but I was able to achieve $500,000 from Care First, which you didn't mention in your testimony, but I'll mention.
Thank you.
And one of the things that motivated me at that time was to save the food bank. Hello? To save the food bank. And you didn't create the food bank at Whitman Walker Clinic. Mm-hmm. We did. And the food bank was a very special service. And I thought, you can't terminate the food bank for the sake of $85,000. That was my reaction. And I want you to know, Mr. Blanchard, that's what motivated me to go to Care First and to say, there were other things that were assisted, but that was one of the things. And now I don't know what the fate of the food bank is going to be. I don't know what the fate of the Virginia operation is going to be. We know what happened in Maryland. The housing program, which we were so incredibly proud of, the ability to have not only beautiful apartments for people to live in, but also the ability to have a skilled care facility, which we had, which is gone. I'm worried about the Max Robinson Center, and I tell you something. I drove the streets of Anacostia. Looking for a location for what became the Max Robinson Center. We had several temporary locations before we finally settled on that old precinct house on Chicago on Martin Luther King Boulevard. It wasn't easy to find that, but it represented such an important commitment to this city in terms of what was the reality of the HIV epidemic at the time, and also what we saw as coming down the pike, which has proven to be true many times over. And so I'm worried about these programs. I'm wondering what is going to be left of this clinic? What is going to be left of all these programs? And how did we end up so pared back? How did we end up so stripped down in terms of these services? And, and now, of course, I bring these concerns not as this kind of a sentimental, nostalgic interest, but as a member of this legislature who wants to be assured that the programs at Whitman Walker Clinic and the services at Whitman Walker Clinic have true vitality in terms of responding to this epidemic. That's why I'm here today. It's not out of any sense of sentimentality that I, in effect, break the silence that I've had all these years. And so that's why I responded very affirmatively. I would have been here at the beginning of the hearing, but I was chairing my own hearing in this building on a Metro Compact Amendment. But I came as soon as our hearing concluded, and so I thank you very much for the opportunity to participate today, Mr. Catania, and I look forward to that. Thank you.